So, hi everyone. This is the fourth episode of Princeton Startup TV. The episode is coming to you all the way from Mountain View. I'm Arman, and we have David Lieb today on the program. David is the co-founder and CEO of Bump, the startup we'll talk about in this interview. He holds the bachelor degree from Princeton in electrical engineering, holds a master's degree from Stanford. He pursued MBA at University of Chicago, which he left to pursue Bump. He worked as an algorithm engineer and technology strategist at Texas Instruments. Hey, Dave. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks. So it's really interesting. I set up really, in essence, David is hosting the interview. But anyway, so what is Bump?
Bump is an iPhone and Android app that makes it really easy to connect with other people or share information by physically just bumping your two phones together.
And how did you come up with this idea? And when
So I came up with the idea in the fall of 2008, and it's when I had just went to University of Chicago, just started there as a business school student, and literally, it was the second week of school. Everyone was meeting all of their new classmates, exchanging phone numbers, typing people's names into their phones, and I just got really frustrated doing that. And I'm the type of person that when I see something that I think could be better in the world, like I complain about it a lot. And so I was complaining about it to a friend of mine, and he said, like, "Hey, you should just figure that out." And so I started to think about it, and we came up with this solution that we started to build right away.
So is your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs out there to kind of take this pessimist glasses and then look for problems around, look for your personal problems, and then try to don't be satisfied with the status quo and build.
That's certainly one way to do startups. I think there's two ways that most startups get formed. One is either a founder has this personal frustration or this personal opportunity that they see that they want to use themselves, and the other class of startups is people who see like a big opportunity, like, oh, mobile's going to be really big, let's do something there. And I think that the former is more interesting because you just have so much more passion for the problem when it's something that you actually want to use yourself.
Yeah, I just heard it from Paul Graham as well. He said, like, most people nowadays just read TechCrunch articles and then do some Markov chain processing to kind of come up with a business idea. So the idea to start a startup precedes the
yeah. I meet a lot of people that say, "Yeah, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go do a startup." I'm like, and I say, "Great, what's your idea?" And they said, "Oh, we haven't thought of it yet. We really want to do a startup." And I love that like initiative, but it's a little concerning because you hope that most companies can build products that solve a problem or present some new thing that's really great for people. And if you just want to go start a startup for the sake of doing a startup, it's maybe a little more daunting.
Right, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of kind of examples out there examples when it worked. For example, Jeff Bezos at Amazon.
Sure.
But really, I think the same way with you, David. Like, it's just coming to this as a from a user perspective, it's much more powerful.
Absolutely.
So I read that you started Bump at YC. How was YCombinator experience like?
YCombinator was awesome. I cannot say enough about it. If anyone is considering starting a startup in the kind of mobile or web space, you really should take a look at YC and see if it would be a good fit. For us, it was a little different. I mean, we had launched our product already.
So you had all traction?
We had pretty good traction. I mean, we had hundreds of thousands of users by the time we got accepted to YC.
Which was summer 2009. Right?
We did the program summer of 2009, so we applied in the spring of 2009, right when we had just launched our product. There were three of us. We were all kind of a bit older than the mean YCombinator demographic. I was 28 at the time. My co-founder Andy was 38. So we were a little older. We weren't the typical kind of software engineers. We all came from hardware and algorithmic backgrounds. But for us, it was really beneficial. We learned, I guess, we got two big benefits. One, just the network in Silicon Valley that we did not have. So we didn't know a lot of other software developers. We didn't know a lot of investors, and we got both of those things from Paul Graham and YC. But then the bigger thing was this this mindset that YC imparts on everyone, which is you got to make something people want.
Yep.
And if you're not doing that, nothing else matters. So it really made us focus on, can we make Bump something that people really, really love?
And what was the product like in those early days?
Like embarrassing.
What did you show on the YC demo day? Like August 2009?
August 2009. By that point, the product that we showed then is very embarrassing to me now, which is what you should do. If your first launch is not embarrassing a couple years later, then you've launched too late. It was a very simplistic product. It let you share your contact information, and I think by the end of the summer we had added photo sharing. So it did basically those two things. The interface was terrible. It was designed by me and my co-founder Jake in PowerPoint, so it was just really, really bad. But the core that we had built was good enough that a lot of people really wanted to talk about it and use it.
And you already had 100,000 early adopters.
By that time, we had more than 1 million.
More than 1 million?
We hit 1 million users during the summer of YCombinator. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And the Bump is this network effects product, right? So you kind of face this loneliness problem in the beginning, chicken and egg problem and all this stuff. How did you come about and solve it? And what were your initial concerns?
Right. So we thought that was going to be a big problem. We thought, oh man, if I download Bump, how am I ever going to convince somebody else to download it so that I can use it? And it's really, there's no single player experience. If I download Bump by myself, it's totally useless. It turns out that we had just enough kind of novelty and magic and delight in the interaction that if you experience Bump and you bump your phones together and instantly you're connected, it's just enough to get you to go and tell your friends about it. And so by having that delight, we actually got this distribution engine going where people want to tell their friends about it. So now it turned from this risk, this network effect risk, into this huge network effect asset where everyone wants to tell their friends about Bump, and that's how we get 85, 100,000 new users every single day.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So all those there's a huge buzz around NFC now, like near field communication, and I got the idea that you and the team are coming to this from software perspective, right? And what are your thoughts on NFC and how does it affect Bump?
Right. So for people who aren't familiar, NFC is basically a new hardware chip that they're putting into certain cell phones that lets you hold the phones near each other and they can communicate information at short range. When we looked at this problem 3 years ago now and said, you really should be able to use your phone to do stuff in the real world and not just the virtual world. We looked at all the solutions and we looked at Bluetooth, which was already out then. We looked at NFC coming down the pipe, at some point in the next decade maybe. And all of those solutions had this key kind of negative aspect to them in that they were hardware based and they required my phone to have a compatible chip with your phone, and whoever made the software stack to have used the same standards that some IEEE standards body agreed upon years ago. And we decided that was not going to be the way to make a universal great user experience. So we took an approach that was software-based rather than hardware-based. We decided we're going to make this work using whatever hardware is on the phone by using smart algorithms rather than relying on some hardware chip. So that's how Bump works. Bump uses whatever hardware is on the phone, the accelerometer, the location of the phone, a bunch of other sensors that we can get access to when available. If NFC does roll out and is cross-compatible, it will be one of the inputs to our system, but we're not reliant on it. And if your phone's got the Apple flavor of NFC and my phone's got the Google flavor of NFC, Bump will still work. And that all being said, it's not clear that NFC will even roll out in the way that some people say it will.
So the way Bump works at this point is if we bump phones, the data kind of through 3G or some network, right, goes to your server, and then it basically does some kind of a closest pair, algorithm for computational geometry, and finds the
pretty much exactly how it works.
Pair.
Yeah, we send up sensor data, and so when you bump, it kind of packages this sensor data up, sends it to the server, and the server listens to all of the phones around the world that are bumping. And these days, there are thousands of phones that are bumping at any instant in time. And it figures out, okay, this phone and this phone, their sensor data matches up. They're in the same place. That must have been two people who actually bumped each other. That's how it works.
At this, so initially you only share you exchange contact information, but at this point you guys exchange music, app recommendations. What is the vision for?
So we had Bump 1.0, which was simplistic, terribly designed, but worked. Once we raised money, built a team, we decided to kind of expand what you could do with Bump. So we put a lot more features into the app. So like you said, music sharing, you can share apps, you can share calendar events, you can connect on social networks. So version 2 of Bump was, let's put some more stuff in there, see what people want to use it for. And we did that over the last year or so, and we've been watching how people use it. It's been very fascinating to see what features people really care about and which ones that we maybe thought they cared about or thought would be huge turned out not to be that big.
Calendar, I guess, is not that big.
Yeah, so calendar's an interesting one. There are not a lot of people every day that really love it, but the people who use it love it.
So retention rate is
and
high.
so retention's good, but just the number of people who use it is relatively small. So music's another interesting example. Music is a feature that tons of people try out because we think that they can illegally share music. And we can't do that. And so a lot of people try it out, use it a little bit, and then kind of go away. And so when we're building Bump 3.0 right now, that's a feature that we're going to remove because it drives a lot of initial usage, but it's not really, people are not actually loving it based on watching how they use it. So Bump 3.0 is going to be, let's watch how people actually use the product and go deep on the areas that they care about and cut out the parts that they don't care about.
So I noticed from the stats you guys are running on this big screens that you had a pretty big usage outside of US.
Right.
So what are the countries? I noticed Japan and Italy are out there, and what are the trends do you guys see outside of US?
So Bump basically, on average, Bump is popular everywhere that iPhones and Androids are popular. That's the first order effect. But beyond that, I think our second largest country is the UK, and our third largest country is Japan. And in Japan, it's interesting, I was telling you earlier, the usage per person there is much higher than it is in some other countries. And we've been trying to figure out why that is, and we think a lot of it has to do with just cultural kind of norms of how people want to exchange information in Japan. They're much more open to using their phones to help facilitate contact information exchange.
Right, so they order food online. They use the phone as a boarding pass in the airports. It's a huge. What did you? So you showed it earlier. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What were the reasons of growth, let's say, in Japan? How disruptive was Bump out there? And
I think that Bump is roughly installed on somewhere between 25% and 30% of all phones that it could possibly be loaded onto in Japan, and that's very high. I mean, that's world record high in terms of probably any app other than the Facebook app. We're actually the third most popular app of all time on iPhone in Japan.
In Japan,
yeah.
Wow.
So we're it goes. There's a weather app, then there's the Google mobile app, and then there's Bump. Wow. And so we're beating all these other apps, and it's really surprising to us. But it's great.
Yeah, Japan has a huge culture of exchanging business cards. When they exchange business,
a very large ritual,
this, and then you have to take time and kind of look at
show respect that you're reading all of the information.
Exactly,
I was there in Japan a couple weeks ago, and I was in some business meetings, and there were, I think, 4 people at the other company that I was meeting, and I had a couple people, and I didn't have any business cards because I don't have business cards because I use my phone. But all of them, they were going through exchanging cards, and the process took like a good 10 minutes. Yeah. So I'm just sitting there, like, okay,
let's bump, guys.
I'll bump with you, but sorry, I don't have a card. So.
What were, in terms of metrics, how many what is the current usage rate? How many users do you guys have? What's the retention rate? If any stats which are kind of open to the public, can you please share that?
So in terms of total downloads, I think we've announced last 60 million installs across iPhone and Android, but we're close to hitting 70 now. As you saw in the lobby.
Million, right?
Right. And then in terms of active users, we define it in lots of different ways. The most traditional way that people report it is who's opened the app in the last 30 days. And I think the last thing we reported there was either 10 or 12 million people in the last 30 days had used it.
That's pretty high.
It's pretty high. Yeah, I mean, like, that's a big focus of what we work on, and we try to do things every day to make that number go up, because that's the number that really matters to us rather than the total installs. But yeah, those are the two kind of big high-level metrics.
In terms of key lessons learned since you started the company, so first-time entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
I guess so.
Yes.
What were the lessons since 2008? And
boy, we could talk about this for hours.
Let's
lots of
let's
lessons.
hit the key lessons.
Yeah, what are the key lessons? I would say the number one lesson is you got to be focused, and that's been a big challenge for us because Bump is a pretty broad thing, and it can apply to lots of different areas. And within hours of having this idea for Bump, I started writing down all the different things that Bump could possibly be used for. Should you be able to bump a parking meter and pay a parking meter? Should you be able to bump a vending machine to place your order? Should you be able to, bump another person and have it tell you if you're compatible? Yeah. All these things. And so it's really exciting to think about new ideas like that. But you've got to make one idea work first.
Focus is about saying no.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So saying no has been really difficult because we get emails every day of partners who want to work with us. Big companies want to work with us, and it's hard to say no, but you have to do it. Right. And you have to just be okay with not doing everything, but doing the things that you do really well. So that would be my number one
very
lesson.
Profound. What in terms of technology stack? What do you guys use in terms of languages and?
On iOS, it's Objective-C primarily. On Android, it's Java-based, but we also use this language Scala to do some of the architectural things. But what many people don't know is that the majority of the kind of magic of Bump actually occurs up in our cloud servers running in Python and C. So this matching algorithm all runs in Python and C.
So you guys are hiring, I noticed, but I guess it's a great time to kind of tell all the. You have university recruiting as well, right? So
we do.
You're doing so interns. If you're looking for a great internship opportunity at a growing, hugely successful startup, so I think Bump is a perfect choice.
Yeah, and just to talk to all you folks out there, a lot of when I was in school, when I was at Princeton, I would look at job descriptions and say, oh, I don't have experience in Objective-C, so I won't even apply to that job. We're growing really quickly, and we care more about drive and intelligence than we do about experience necessarily. So if you have interest in getting into mobile, which is going to be the biggest growth engine of our economy in the next 10 years, check us out. And if you're smart and you're driven, it's pretty likely that we can find a way to kind of train you up on the things you need to know and then have you really contribute within 1 month, I would say.
I noticed that you guys have a Bump API as well. So there are quite many hackathons in Princeton and in the area as well, where many companies present their APIs and everyone can use it. What are some of the best examples of applications built on top of Bump API?
The API is really interesting. We basically built it because PayPal wanted to use it, so we thought, oh, we'll build it. And so the most, the biggest name company that's using it is PayPal, and so in the PayPal app today on both iPhone and Android, you can bump money between two phones. And that's really interesting. But there are 400 other apps that use Bump, and it's a very wide range of applications, going from PayPal on one end to apps on the other end that help you determine your compatibility with a potential partner. So you type in, what you like in a potential mate, and the other person does, and you bump, and it tells you if you're compatible or not. And then there's all sorts of interesting things in the middle there too.
So you kind of outsource this kind of all this crazy ideas you had.
Yeah. We had a lot of these ideas, and we thought, there's no way we're ever going to be able to build all these. Let's make an API, and so the ones that are most interesting, people can go build themselves.
What do you think of of this idea of 5 whys? Eric Ries is kind of popularizing the idea is that underneath any technical problem lies the human problem. That if you, let's say, look at the let's say the problem is the site is down. So why is it down? Because let's say the server A was down. Why is the server A that was down? So you kind of keep asking this in like depth of search fashion. You keep asking this twice, and then on the five level of 5 level of depth, you kind of realize that it's actually something to do to the employee,
the real
X
person, right?
Exactly. What are your thoughts on this?
I've never heard that before. I haven't read that book. I mean, I know of Eric Ries, but I haven't read the book yet.
He's actually your neighbor.
Yeah. Well, he started Interview. Yeah. I think that's like from my experience, that sounds very accurate. Definitely there's this onion that you have to peel back the layers, and eventually it comes down to some problem that a human being introduced, because humans don't mess up. They don't get hit by gamma rays that often, so they actually are always right. So yeah, that's definitely something that we see all the time. And what's interesting is a lot of problems, you peel back the onion and you finally get to, this developer wrote this bug into the code. But I think there's even a layer below that, which is the team structure wasn't set up right by the management, such that bugs like that would be found before it gets deployed.
Right.
So yeah, like I don't think the answer always is, oh yeah, that guy screwed up.
Right.
Oftentimes it's the team wasn't organized in a way that individual mistakes would be caught.
Absolutely, yeah. So if it's easy to be broken by a single person, I guess we should question the reliability of the whole system.
Yep.
And in terms of if we kind of use some of the terminology from Lean Startup, he talks about viral engine of growth, and I think Bump is the example of this viral engine of growth, when the growth depends on the people who were brought by the current users. So and there is a notion of viral coefficient. What is the viral coefficient for Bump? So in terms of how many, let's say, if we have 10 users and one user was brought up by this 10 of them, and the viral coefficient is 0.1, which is terrible. I hope that your guys' viral coefficient is greater than 1.
Right.
Is it?
I don't know the viral coefficient according to that definition offhand. What I do know is we look at all of our downloads, so the 100,000 new users that we'll get today. We know how we got those users, and we figure this out in a variety of ways, looking at data, doing surveys, things like that. And it turns out that roughly 3/4 of all new users have downloaded the app because a friend is sitting next to them, literally sitting next to them saying, hey, you should download Bump, and then they use it right then. So that really drives a lot of growth for us.
And I guess 25% is by being featured on
the other 25% are people who see us in the press, people who see us on the App Store charts, people who just randomly somehow find us on the web or wherever.
Yeah. What are your favorite blogs and books?
My favorite blogs and books. So if you're into entrepreneurship, Paul Graham's essays are the best thing you could ever spend your time reading. You should read all of those. I haven't even read them all yet, and I intend to. Another blog that I really like is Ben Horowitz's blog. So Ben Horowitz is one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz, which did our Series B financing. So Mark Andreessen's on our board, but Ben writes this really great blog that I think is really great.
And what is the address? What is the URL?
I don't know. When I want to go read it, I type Ben's blog into Google, and it's the first hit. So Fred Wilson has a great blog also, which I'm sure. ABC. Fred's awesome. We love him. We talked to him a lot in our Series A discussions. Didn't do the deal with them eventually, but like him a lot. And then what else do I read? I read TechCrunch because I kind of have to.
And you were featured in TechCrunch TV recently.
I was, yeah. So I did the founder stories. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. So yeah, I think if you want to stay up to date on what's going on in the Valley, TechCrunch is the place you can do it. And there's a lot of other things I look at, but I'm very busy these days. So basically, most of the news that I get is what people post on Facebook. And it's kind of sad to admit that, but I really don't know about anything that's going on in the world unless one of my friends posts it on Facebook.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's kind of selective ignorance.
Yeah, it's curated by my friends.
Right. You found your muse. You happy about kind of building the product, and the rest of the world, I mean, really doesn't matter.
Yep. Exactly.
what about the books? Any recommendations?
Boy, I have a stack of, I think, like 10 books on my bedstand right now. I'm currently reading just a fiction novel by Dave Eggers. But in terms of entrepreneurship, business books, I have the Steve Jobs documentary. It's actually sitting on my desk there,
Yeah,
so that Steve is always staring at me. So I need to read that. I'll try to read that over the holidays. I have the Facebook Effect that I want to read. I started it and then got off of it, and I want to get back on that. What else do I have? I have a book on emotional intelligence, and I don't know the author. I can find out, but I think that is like the #1 skill you can cultivate.
Is it about compassion?
It's about understanding how to deal with people. So I think a lot of us come from engineering backgrounds, like I know I do, and they never teach you this in engineering classes. In engineering classes, you do your problem sets. No one ever teaches you how to motivate someone else to help work on a problem set with you, right? And these are skills you kind of learn, but you're never really focusing on them. And I tell all of our guys, of all the things you're going to learn at Bump, you're going to learn really great technologies, how to solve hard problems. The thing that's going to be most valuable to you later on in your career is working on a team of people that's really passionate about something. And that's the skill that's going to be most valuable.
What were the most memorable classes at Princeton you took?
By far, #1, Ed Zhao's high-tech entrepreneurship class.
Which is,
and it's great, and I
took it last fall.
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, so absolutely try to take that. If you can't get into the class or aren't able to fit in your schedule, try to get a hold of somebody who took the class and get their course pack documents and just read it over the summer or something.
Do you remember
like
the company you interviewed for the final paper?
Yes, it was a startup called Money.net.
Was it New York-based startup?
They were in New York, yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And I think they're still around. I'm not sure. I haven't checked out.
So I think they need to interview you now. I mean,
I think I am doing at least one this year. Yeah.
Very cool. And the last question: what is your vision for Bump in the years?
We think that these mobile phones are going to get even more sophisticated going forward, and there should be a way for you to use this phone to interact and do things in the real world. And not a lot of people are thinking about the opportunities there, but there are a ton of big problems or inconveniences in our lives that we go through every day that could be easily solved by having a way to just take your phone and interact with something in the real world, whether it's another person, a place, a thing, an object. That's kind of our goal, is to make people's lives easier by making technology a little more intuitive.
Well, Dave, thanks for being here. That was Princeton Startup TV episode #4. Let's bump.